Don't let 2025 be another year of failed fitness attempts. I'm going to give you everything you need in this guide to help you succeed with all of your fitness goals, and you're going to be in the best shape of your life. Hey guys, Dr. Joel Seidman here, PhD in exercise science. In this video, I want to equip you with every tip and tool that you need to maximize your fitness goals in this upcoming year, because I know a lot of you have failed fitness attempts and goals that you may have not accomplished in previous years. But what's going to be different in this upcoming year is that we're going to reach those goals, because I'm going to give you everything you need, whether it's fitness related, nutrition, or just daily living habits. We're going to go over all of those tools and all of those tips. So let's get started. One quick note before we jump into this. This video is going to be more of a high level overview and outline of all of the topics that we're going to be going over more comprehensively in 2025. And I'm going to have separate videos, tutorials, and even some podcasts deep diving into each one of these topics. So if you walk away from this video and you're not quite sure what to make of some of these topics that I go over, make sure you subscribe below, because I'm going to have a lot more information on every one of these tips. So we're going to have three core areas for this video. We're going to be doing nutrition and dietary habits. We're going to be doing daily lifestyle habits. And then third, it's the one you guys are probably watching my channel for. We're going to be talking about everything gym and training related. So let's jump into this. So I'm going to give you a nutrition or dietary tip that might kind of blow your mind, because most of us have been taught over the years that we need to count our calories, we need to track our macros. But I'm telling you right now, moving on to 2025, stop counting your calories, stop worrying about your macros. Don't over obsess about whether or not you got enough protein or too little carbs or not enough fat or whatever it may be. Focus more on some of these subtle tips that I want to go over, starting off with the quality of the nutrients that you're taking in. This means you want to eliminate processed foods or any food that's not in its natural occurring state. All of my clients, I give them this general rule. 90% of the food that they eat needs to be in its natural form. The other 10%, if you want to deviate a little bit and have some processed food here and there, maybe some cheat foods, that's okay. But the bulk majority of your nutrition needs to be from naturally occurring foods, natural occurring proteins, natural occurring carbohydrates like rice, yams, fruits, and vegetables, and then even your fats from nuts, avocados, olive oil, and those good proteins, meat, fish, eggs, yogurt, things that are not processed. Something you're going to want to keep in mind is don't force feed or don't eat when your body's not ready for it. Another way to think about this is that if you're not hungry, your body probably doesn't need food. It probably doesn't need or require nutrients at that time. So listening to your hunger signals and listening to those hunger hormones, they're there for a reason. If we tune into those hunger hormones and what our body's telling us, rather than thinking, oh, it's time to eat, or, oh, it's been 4 hours since I had protein, or 5 hours since I had my last meal and it's time for me to eat again, don't worry about that. Don't worry about adhering to a fixed, specific schedule. Instead, focus more on what your body is telling you. If also related to this topic of whole foods versus processed foods. Processed foods are not going to fill you up. A lot of those foods are empty calories, and oftentimes they're engineered and created just to keep you hungry so that you can keep coming back to that same food and eat more of it, so that same manufacturer can have you buying more of that food and making more money off of those false hunger signals. Practically speaking, if you're trying to figure out whether a food is processed or in its whole natural form, something I always like to tell my clients, and a rule I go by, is if it wasn't around in Bible times, it's probably processed food. You probably shouldn't be eating a whole lot of it. And if it was around in Bible times or a few thousand years ago, it's likely in its natural form. You're likely to break it down well, and you probably don't have to worry about eating too much of it because it's a natural occurring healthy food. Something else to consider when it comes to nutrition and diet. Now, I'm kind of preaching to myself on this because I've fallen prey to this habit over the years, especially with a busy schedule, of relying too much on supplements, especially protein powders and meal replacements and different types of processed packaged protein to get me through the day. Focus more on getting your nutrients from whole foods, as we just mentioned, and think of the supplements as, yes, better than most processed foods, but it's still processed. So we've covered the nutrition topics. Let's move on to some of the daily living tips I recommend all my athletes and clients do just for natural, healthy living. The first and probably the most important is related to posture. Try to work on improving your posture in this upcoming year. Posture is probably the most important element of body mechanics and movement and even overall health. If your posture is good, it's likely that your body mechanics are going to be pretty sound. And with sound or proper body mechanics, that means you're going to have less joint pain, you're going to have more energy, you're less likely to have low back and even neck pain, and even things like headaches are related to poor posture. And one of the best things you can do for that is actually work on your posture daily. Stand up every hour or two if you're sitting for a living, or even if you're just chilling at home watching TV. Stand up, set your posture, keep your head tall, pull your shoulders down and back, pull your stomach in, keep your feet straight, and hold that for 30 to 60 seconds. Again, once every 1 to 2 hours. You'd be surprised simply doing that just periodically throughout the day, how much that will improve your posture and actually make you feel a lot better. Now, because of society and the way that most individuals wear tight shoes that kind of create this cramping effect on their feet and their toes, most individuals have very poor functioning foot and ankle mechanics. And as a result, there's a lot of research that shows this leads to various types of joint pain from ankles, knees, hips, even low back. So just taking off those tight constricting shoes, going barefoot throughout the day as much as possible, especially when you're at home, and even investing in a good barefoot shoe, it'll do wonders for allowing your toes to splay or spread apart. Your foot and ankle mechanics will naturally improve, and you'll be surprised how much better your joints feel. It's also going to allow you to lift heavier weight in the gym, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. For this next tip, I want to take you back to this previous year of 2024, something that I learned a lot about my own body and my own health and fitness. And that was I really worked on my breathing patterns, especially nasal breathing. For a long time and for most years of my life, I've been a pretty extensive or heavy mouth breather, and that's not healthy. A lot of the research points to this nasal breathing as being a lot more beneficial, a lot healthier for humans. And so one of the things that you can do is just work on this while you're at home, and eventually this is going to become a lot easier and more natural for you. Focus on sealing your mouth shut, breathing through your nose, and creating perfect posture. The research shows you get a lot better oxygen utilization. It actually helps to keep you calm, and it keeps you from going into an overly anxious state. It filters the air more naturally and more efficiently, and it also helps with posture. So better posture will help with your breathing patterns and nasal breathing, but nasal breathing will actually help with your posture. So in 2025, prioritize nasal breathing instead of mouth breathing. If you want to go backwards with your fitness, if you want to go backwards with your training, just get sick. You know what it's like. 1 or 2 weeks away from the gym, you see your strength start to dissipate. You don't feel as energized. You decondition. Everything starts to break down. So if you can stay healthy, if you can stay on top of your immune system function, this is going to be huge. And one of the ways to do that is, number one, prioritize sleep. And I'm speaking to myself here because I've been bad, especially over these last 4 or 5 years, as my training schedule has gotten a lot more busy. I've had to sacrifice sleep. Well, in this upcoming year, I've told myself as a New Year's resolution, I'm going to try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, and I recommend you do the same. Something else you can do to help with immune system function is continue to eat more of those whole foods, like I mentioned, because those whole foods like natural organic beef, fish, vegetables, fruits, and nuts, you're going to get a lot more vitamin C, D, and zinc in there. Those are all going to help with your immune system. And another thing that I recommend for all my clients and athletes is actually 2 things. Try to have some Manuka honey several times per week. It's pretty expensive, but it's one of the most powerful natural antioxidants in the world. It's from New Zealand. Again, that's Manuka honey. It's more powerful than natural honey. And then also try to have apple cider vinegar once per day, 2 to 3 tablespoons. Great for health, great for immune system function, great for overall physiological function, and even hair and skin health. It's probably one of the best cure-alls you can have for just about any type of sickness or illness or ailment that you have in your body. So again, focus on your immune system this upcoming year, and your results will definitely show. Actually, there's a lot of research showing that inflammation in our body is largely related not just to the food that we ingest, but to our muscle function, because our muscles are the largest endocrine organ of our body. And if our muscles are not healthy, they're going to be producing inflammation, and inflammation is related or linked to pretty much every known disease and malady and sickness in the human body. So if you can improve your body mechanics, essentially what happens is you reduce inflammation, your immune system functions better, and you're just overall a lot healthier and less likely to get sick. Try to accumulate at least 30 minutes of walking every day. Now, this is not included in when you go to the gym or when you go and do a workout. We're talking about outside of the gym, outside of your actual workout structured routine. The cool thing is this does not have to be accumulated all at once. You can break it up. In fact, some of the research shows that breaking it up into small 5-10 minute segments throughout the day might spike your metabolism a little bit more, because you're having these frequent spikes rather than just letting your metabolism get kind of sluggish where your energy levels start to shut down. If you can go for a walk every few hours, even if it's just for a few minutes, and you can accumulate at least 30 minutes of walking every day, not only will you feel better, but I guarantee you're going to notice the fat start falling off you almost immediately, because walking is one of the best things we can do to lose fat while still preserving muscle. When we sit or we stand and we aren't very physically active for, say, 3, 4, 5 hours, what ends up happening is our muscles can kind of get a little bit tight, or maybe they get a bit lazy feeling. Our energy levels start to get low. Maybe our posture starts to break down. We start to slouch a little bit more. We start to notice that our body mechanics just start to break down a little bit more because our muscles aren't fired up like they normally would be when we're in the gym or when we're physically active. Try to incorporate some daily activation into your normal living. That means you can do something like a few body weight squats or a squat hold. You can do some push-ups. You can do a plank. You can do a few lunge holds. Focusing on feeling the targeted muscles really activate and feeling like your form locks in and creating full body tension. Focus on your form. Focus on your technique. Do it right, and you're actually setting yourself up to create good training habits. So when you do actually go to the gym, you're more likely to do the exercise with good form. So we've already covered nutritional and dietary habits. We've covered daily lifestyle habits. Now we're going to get into everyone's favorite, the gym and training guide. So we're going to start off here with the basic movement patterns that you want to focus on when you go to the gym. I refer to these as the Big 7, or the fundamental 7 human movement patterns. And these are movements and exercises that really everyone needs to do. These include the squat, the hinge or the RDL. A lot of people think of that as a deadlift. The lunge or split squat. Those are the 3 for lower body. For upper body, we have horizontal push like a bench press or dumbbell chest press. We have horizontal pull like a seated row or a dumbbell row. And then we have vertical push and pull. Vertical push would be something like an overhead press or standing military press. And then the vertical pull would be something like a lat pull down or a pull up. If you prioritize these big 7 movements, you try to get stronger at those, you try to use perfect form with those movements, and let's say a bulk of your training incorporates these big 7 exercises, not only will you gain a lot more muscle and strength through this upcoming year, but what you'll notice is you don't have to do a lot of other isolation exercises. Now, there's nothing wrong with isolation exercises like bicep curls or tricep press downs, but if you get stronger at something like a bench press, your triceps are naturally going to get stronger and bigger. Same thing if you get stronger at something like a pull-up or a lat pull-down, your biceps will also grow. So again, by prioritizing these big 7 movements and using that as the bulk of your training, you're going to see your whole body improve. Everything is going to get bigger and stronger, and you're going to feel healthy. And then if you want to do a few additional isolation exercises at the end of your workout, feel free to. Your muscles are pretty dumb. They don't register what exercise you did. They don't register the weight. They don't register the reps. What they do register and what they do perceive is tension or quality tension. So this means that the best thing you can do is actually clean up your technique. Don't focus on just getting through the exercise. Don't focus on just doing the reps. Focus on improving your body mechanics. Get better at having good posture on all of your exercise, making sure that you're not favoring one side of your body, you're not creating compensation patterns, you're not using a lot of momentum or cheating the exercise. Use smooth, controlled reps, and what you'll notice right off the bat, you're going to grow more muscle, your joints are going to feel better, and you're actually going to make better progress in the gym. Related to the same topic of improving your body mechanics is something that bodybuilders have been referring to for years. It's called the muscle-mind connection. And actually, there's a lot of research substantiating this as a legitimate way to train. And all I'm referring to with this muscle-mind connection is that you're thinking about or concentrating on the muscles that you're intending to target. For example, if you're doing something like a bench press, a lot of folks walk away from a chest press or a bench press feeling their shoulders and triceps and arms. They might not necessarily feel their chest. Well, when you do a bench press, try to think about engaging your pectorals and your chest. And what will happen is not only will you engage and activate those targeted muscles more effectively, but that will produce more muscle growth and it will also take a lot of tension off of your joints. So focus on the muscle-mind connection on every exercise that you do. The biggest trick the devil ever played on the fitness industry was making everyone think that they needed to push their mobility boundaries. This is probably the biggest mistake I see, not just in your average gym goer, but even in young fitness enthusiasts. They think that if they push their mobility, they stretch further on their exercise, they go a little deeper on their squat, they think they might get a little bit more muscle activation. Well, first off, the research shows you're not going to have more muscle activation. You're actually going to have less activation because you had to decrease tension in your muscles to actually collapse and get that extra range of motion. But what also happens is you're placing a lot more tension on the joints and connective tissue, and again, less on the muscles. Rather than having a win-win of going to an optimal range of motion where your muscles are fully engaged, you're taking tension off the joints, this is a lose-lose when you train with too much range of motion. You're destroying your joints and you're having less of a stimulus on the targeted muscles. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, how do I improve my technique? How do I get better at my body mechanics? What's the secret recipe for that? Well, I'm going to give it to you. It's 90-degree eccentric isometrics. This is something that I use almost exclusively with all of my athletes, with all my clients, as well as in my own training. It makes up probably 95% of everything that we do with our training methods because it's the single most effective training method I know of for gaining muscle and strength, for improving joint health, and also for improving athletic performance and muscle function. And a 90-degree eccentric isometric, it sounds fancy and maybe even a little bit convoluted, but it's pretty simple. All you're doing is, say on something like a squat, you're going to perform the squat slowly. You're going to come down slowly. You're going to stay as tight as possible. And when you get to the bottom, you're going to hold that 90-degree position. Once again, we're not going for maximal range of motion. We're going for optimal range of motion, which for most exercises is around 90. We're going to hold that 90-degree position for a few seconds, squeezing with maximal full body tension. And then we can drive up pretty explosively while still staying controlled. That same formula can be applied to just about every movement, including those big 7 that we already went over. This is going to get the most out of your exercises. Once again, you're going to have the best strength and muscle building stimulus. Your joints are going to feel great. If you're wondering how do you optimize or find those 90-degree positions that we just talked about, if you have perfect posture and then you keep your feet perfectly straight and screw your feet into the floor by activating your big toes and really trying to pop your arches up. If you do all of those things, I guarantee you your body mechanics will actually be pretty darn solid on just about every exercise. We've all heard the phrase practice makes perfect. We've even heard the term perfect practice makes perfect. Well, I want to one-up that and add something to that concept. It's frequent, perfect practice makes perfect. Yeah, it's a bit of a tongue twister, I know, but it's true. It's not just about practicing something. It's not just about practicing it perfectly or doing it right. It's also about frequency. When we're in the gym, we're trying to work on our squat technique. We're trying to work on our bench press form. These are skills. These are tasks that if we get better at technique and we get better at practicing those skills more frequently, what's going to happen is your technique is going to improve dramatically. And as a result, you're going to be able to handle heavier loads more efficiently. And this leads us into this next topic of doing more full body workouts. A lot of folks kind of do the old school bodybuilding training splits where they might do arms on one day, legs on another, maybe take a break and then do shoulders the next day. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem though is that you're not practicing the movements frequently enough. A lot of the research shows that not only do you have a bigger spike in testosterone when you do full body workouts, but once again, you have the chance to actually practice those big movement patterns more frequently and you get more efficient at them. So once again, you'll be able to handle more weight. So rather than doing these body part splits, try doing 2 to 4 full body workouts per week. What is the most common reason people fail at their fitness goals, and maybe even one of the most common reasons that people stop working out? They might have set out thinking they need to hit the gym 4 or 5 times a week to hit all the muscle groups and to hit every body part equally. Well, what happens if you start missing 1 day per week, or you miss 2 times per week? And if you're doing a body part split, you feel like, wow, I just missed my leg workout for the week. Now I have to wait a whole another week to come back and get all of my body parts in there. This is the great thing about doing full body workouts. Let's say you plan on doing 3 or 4 workouts per week, but you only get 2 workouts in. Well, you still had 2 complete full body workouts. Now you don't have to feel like you failed. Instead, you feel like, hey, I already did 2 full body workouts per week. Maybe I'll make up for the next week and do 3, 4, or even 5 full body workouts. Obviously, you would want to modify the intensity and the exercises, but it just sets people up to have more success as they move ahead into their training program rather than feeling like all hope is lost because they missed a few workouts. This next topic is going to create a little bit of heat, but it's something that I've seen very true in all of my athletes and clients, and that is you can eliminate foam rolling and most of your soft tissue work, including stretching and flexibility training. Foam rolling and stretching and feeling like you have to roll out these tight muscles before you work out, that is anything but normal. That is highly abnormal. And if you think about this, up until 15, 20 years ago, there was no such thing as foam rolling. There was no such thing as doing all these soft tissue modalities before you went and did your workout. You just did a small warm up and jumped into the workout. When people train with faulty form and poor body mechanics, their muscles get tight, they get stiff, and yes, then inevitably you feel like you have to go foam roll. So rather than trying to treat the symptoms, treat the cause. The cause is poor or faulty body mechanics and muscle dysfunction that's related to your technique, probably because you're trying to push your mobility boundaries too much and push that range of motion. Use optimal range of motion like 90-degree eccentric isometrics, and that'll give you all of the therapeutic modality you need. That's all my clients and athletes do. They don't have to stretch. They don't have to foam roll. Your muscles will feel amazing. Your body will feel healthy and loose. You won't have to do any of those other garbage modalities. What if I told you you could cut your reps and your total volume of work in half and actually get double the results and double the benefits? Well, in reality, that's exactly what I'm telling you to do. Cut your reps at least in half, and instead of doing 8 to 15 reps on every exercise, go 3 to 6 reps, which is pretty much what I have all of my professional and collegiate athletes do. But what you'll want to do is you'll want to make up for those less or a smaller number of reps by having more time under tension each rep. If you do a proper 90-degree rep, you will come down slow. You hold that 90-degree position for a few seconds. Chances are, if you do 3 to 5 perfect reps like that, your time under tension will be exponentially greater than someone's 10, 12, or 15 reps of a set. And you're actually going to be able to focus on quality of movement, not just quantity, because when you go slower, you pause, you take your time each rep, and you control it, I guarantee you your quality will be exponentially better. So you'll have a better training stimulus for muscle growth, and your joints will feel markedly better. Every individual, every human needs to include or incorporate some type of explosive training or explosive power movement into their training protocol at some point, usually once or twice or more throughout the week, depending on your goals. As we age, including after 28, 30 years old, we start to lose the ability to activate those fast twitch muscle fibers. And there's a lot of conjecture out there that one of the reasons people age or they accelerate their own aging process is because they can no longer activate those fast twitch fibers. So you don't have to do anything crazy. I'm not telling you to have your 80-year-old grandma do box jumps, but even just taking a medicine ball, tossing it as far as you can, that'll go a long ways in teaching your body how to activate those fast twitch fibers and decelerate the aging process. Try to include some type of sprinting or fast running into your workouts at least once or twice a week. Now, I understand there's going to be some people with restrictions here, maybe some structural limitations or joint limitations, but you'd be surprised. I've worked with a lot of individuals and even some of my clients who are in their 70s, they can actually do sprints. We're not going at 100% speed. We're maybe going 70, 80, 85%, working on technique. There's this general statistic in the literature that shows that after 30 years old, most people will never sprint again in their lifetime. That's kind of crazy, and it's actually kind of frightening. Like, to me, that's pretty scary. And when they looked at one of the reasons for that, or one of the main reasons, is a lot of people just didn't feel comfortable sprinting, or they didn't want to sprint, or they felt like they couldn't without injuring their body. Personally, my goal is when I'm 70, even 80 years old, I still want to be able to have this fundamental human quality of movement that allows me to sprint. It's one of the most basic things we as humans can and should be able to do, not just for survival, but also just for overall health and performance. So try to start incorporating some basic sprints into your training. If you've been training for at least 6 months to a year in this upcoming 2025 year, try to incorporate eccentric overload at some point in your training. Now, what does that mean? Eccentric overload. It's also often referred to as heavy negatives. So let's say you're stuck at 200 pounds on a bench press. You're trying to get stronger. Well, the research is very clear on this. Perhaps the number one most effective way to actually improve your strength and muscle growth, as well as to bust out of a training plateau, is actually use this eccentric overload, where you load up the bar with anywhere from 10 to 30% more weight than you would typically handle. So let's say you put 220 pounds on there and your max is 200 pounds. You would have a competent spotter or two spotters, one on each side of the bar, bring the bar down slowly at around to 90 degrees, and then have the training partner assist you on the way up. What ends up happening is you're basically forcing your body to get accustomed to handling heavier weight. You're calling upon those higher threshold motor units. You're creating a very high level of intramuscular tension and even micro trauma within the muscle. And all these things have been shown to help increase and trigger more muscle hypertrophy and muscle growth, as well as strength gains, and even help bulletproof the body in terms of injury prevention. Now, if you don't have access to a competent training partner, but you still want to take advantage of the benefits of eccentric overload, I have various articles on my website explaining and outlining how to perform eccentric overload training with a self-assisted method where you don't have to rely on anyone else to help you with. You can just do it yourself. So I'll have those links below. Definitely check those out because they're very invaluable for triggering muscle growth. But related to this is something that I see a lot of gym and fitness enthusiasts fall prey to, and it's this ideology that they have to progress the weight every single workout. It's called progressive overload. A lot of individuals over obsess about progressive overload. They feel every time they go to the gym, if they don't add another 5 pounds to the bar, or if they don't do one additional rep compared to their last workout, that they're a failure, they didn't accomplish their goals, they're going backwards, and it's all for naught. That is totally the wrong mindset to have about training, because what ends up happening is you'll sacrifice your form because you have this compulsion that you have to have this extra weight or this extra rep. And rather than focusing on your technique, you're so focused on quantity that you sacrifice quality. Now, I'm not saying to disregard this progressive overload model altogether, but what you'll find is if you focus on your technique, you focus on the quality of movement, what you'll find is, wow, this feels easy. I can keep the same form. I can still adhere to proper mechanics with 205 or 210. So add that extra 5 or 10 pounds, but don't force it. Wait for it to happen naturally. And honestly, one of the best forms of progressive overload is actually improving your form with the same weight. Don't just feel like you have to add more weight to the bar. Improve your form, and that's the best form of progress you can make. That was a lot of information we just covered, and like I said, this video is meant to be a general overview or outline of all the topics that we're going to cover more comprehensively in the upcoming year. I'm going to have a lot of tutorials. We're going to have some podcast episodes. I'm going to have separate videos basically allocated towards some questions and answers. So if you guys have any comments, or if you have any questions about what any of these topics mean, or various discussions that you want me to have, or topics that you want me to cover, leave those comments below. Make sure to follow, and we're going to have a lot more information in the future, so stay tuned for that.